Good morning, everyone. Hello, YouTube friends. Welcome to my podcast. My name is Corrina. I'm coming to you from the Pacific Northwest, where I live with my partner, our two kitties, and the two horses that I'm going to go out to feed. So, welcome. If you have stumbled on this podcast, the format may be a little bit different than what you're used to. I'm probably not used to someone bobbing around on one foot putting on socks. So this is in part, a knitting podcast. It is also a podcast about my horsemanship journey. And I've been trying to think about, why am I thinking about that? And I guess the point of this is, and I'm going to turn you around so that we can go outside. The point of this is to provide maybe some insight into horsekeeping if you love horses but perhaps have never had one. There are some particular challenges when you live in a place that's dark and rainy. It is about 6 a.m. on Friday, November 22nd. I am going out to feed a little bit early. Usually I wait until daylight, but I'm meeting a friend for coffee. I'm not sure if that was really an interruption or just my phone split screen, so I don't really know what's going on. The other thing that can be challenging about horsekeeping is when you don't have a facility. So I keep my horses at home. I need to turn on my headlamp because, as you can see, it's really dark. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. Also, a lot of people don't have the privilege to keep their horses at home. A lot of people have to stable if they have horses. Both require a financial commitment. We are getting to the creek, so I just want to share the landscape with you. I don't even know if you can see that because it's very dark and the headlights not very bright, but here's the outfall of the creek. There's a big pond, and this is upstream, and you should be able to see the house up there. Honestly, I can't see a darn thing. So I'll talk a little bit more about this later, see if I can kind of expand on my thoughts a little bit after I talk about the knitting projects that I'm working on. And I'm happy to report I will have a finished object for you. If you follow me on Instagram, CMEQNOMAD, it's CM Eknomad, you will have seen the finished object. You can also follow me on Bluesky at whinniesandknits. So the horses aren't in their stalls. Not exactly sure where they are. They should be in this yard somewhere. Because, like I said, it's a little bit early for me to start feeding them. And I'm going to get to it. Thought I'd record a little bit more about my thoughts about horsekeeping. I just finished feeding and walking back up to the house. I want to point out that it's raining, and I mentioned in the previous segment that I don't have any facilities, like riding facilities necessarily. I don't have an arena. I have a round pen that I do work in. And if you've seen some of my previous videos, I have recorded some of that. But when it's dark and rainy, it can be really difficult to find creative ways to interact with your horses, much less ride them. The local trails here, which are a couple miles away, I have to trailer Odin the Gray to them. Bragi's still working on trailer training. He's not under saddle yet. Those trails close for a couple months. No, not a couple months. for a couple weeks every October, and then another short time in November as well for hunting season. And then the trails close permanently so that they are not damaged by horses and bicycles. Hikers can still use them. So that's part of the goal of this podcast, is just to give people an idea of what it's like to keep horses, and of course also have a great time with them, and also of course knitting because it's dark out. And what else are you going to do when it's dark and rainy? Give you a little view of my tomatoes and lemon tree, my little indoor garden in the dining room. So back at the house, need to get busy. Talk soon. Hello everyone, welcome to the knitting portion of my podcast. So in this section I generally talk about my finished objects if I have any, and I happen to have one, which I'll talk about in a minute. And also my works in progress, and sometimes see some knitting plans. Then I'll talk a little bit more. I'll continue the subject that I started in the introduction this morning about horsekeeping in the Pacific Northwest, and some of the reasons why I talk about horsemanship. Besides that, it's a big part of my life. So let's talk about finished objects and what I'm wearing. So this is the Neigh sweater by Caitlin Hunter. I haven't blocked it yet. I have worn it. I wore it yesterday and I'm wearing it today. It is surprisingly fuzzy already for the amount that I have worn it. What I want to point out are the sleeves. So I put these tiny ponies motifs on there instead of the pattern, which calls for these crosses. Let me see. Sorry, everything's backwards in the camera and it's a little hard. So this was what the sleeve pattern is, are these crosses, and I thought it was kind of boring. So I picked a motif from a knitting dictionary that I have that are these tiny ponies. So I have tiny ponies on my sleeves, on my arms, and then I have these horses on the front and around the back. So the horse yarn is spin cycle. This kind of maroon or burgundy color is a DK weight Barocco Ultra Alpaca, and this gray is a Knit Picks Swish in Squirrel Heather. So alpaca, this is merino, and I don't remember what the spin cycle is, but I assume it's wool. So so I love the sweater. It's quite warm. I haven't blocked it yet, so you'll probably notice like this part is pretty smooth, and then you get into the color work and it's a little bit lumpy. I wanted to wear it before I blocked it, otherwise it would probably still be drying. So I may block it this afternoon or tomorrow. I'm going to do a bunch of cooking projects today, which might be a good time to block it and put on something that's not quite as nice. Put on something more industrial or industrious. I'm not sure. I just made myself a cup of mint tea. Some of the mint is fresh mint that I just got from the co-op, the Skagit Food Co-op up in Mount Vernon. Some of it is some dried mint I had from my garden. I want to say it was from last summer. I just found it in the back of the cupboard. I'm going to check my notes here real quick just to talk about what's going on. So my works in progress that I have an over-the-knee socks that's been hibernating for quite a long time. I have been, what do you call it when you use the yarn for something else? I haven't unraveled it, but I am using the yarn that should be knitted into the sock into other things. So I'm scavenging, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm scavenging, I'm harvesting, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I'm using the yarn for other things. So I don't think I haven't finished the first over the knee sock, so I am probably not going to finish it, is my guess. So this has been a year of either frogging the knits that make me unhappy and starting over, or frogging them and making them into something completely something else. So I talked about that in my last episode. So if you are interested in that, and also I want to share that if you're interested in the shawls that I turned into ponchos by simply crocheting the edges together, so that instead of having it an open shawl that fits up over my shoulders and then falls off when I move, I sewed them together so they're a poncho. So that's at the end of my last video. What else am I working on? So I have the vine tank, which is by a pattern by Seedling Stitch that is hibernating. I will talk about the Flamingo cowl that I have been working on. This is by Tellybean Knits. I'm getting close to the end of it. It's not my primary project right now. So this is like a mini poncho shaped cowl. So I've talked about that at length in my last podcast, so I won't completely revisit it here. But what I do like are these cowls that kind of sit very snugly over the shoulders, and they're not simply a tube that kind of flops around my neck. So this is the cowl. So you'll notice that this first part are some palm trees. I accidentally made one of them brown, did the opposite color. I realized that this section here, there's not a lot of contrast. This is supposed to be a sunshine, so I don't know how well you can see that. And then I just started the flamingo part here, so you're not really going to see anything yet on that, but I knit on that periodically. What else am I working on? I am working on a Christmas cowl. That has been kind of a primary project for me. And that is in this bag that my mom made. This nifty horse patterned fabric, simple drawstring bag. Love this. Protects it from the cats. So I'm getting down toward the end of this one as well, and it is, sorry, I forgot to put the pattern back in the for the flamingo cowl, and you know how important it is to have your pattern with your project. So similar shaped, no, it is exactly the same shaped cowl, and this is, I'm calling this kind of old-fashioned Christmas colors. So it's kind of with this gold and this burgundy and this green, and you can see the nifty stripes, and then this pattern here, which is very simple, like a fleur-de-lis, and then reindeer. So, and then I'm on, I will start another motif here, and this is just the edge of it. So I've been working on this. My goal is to have this finished by the beginning of December, because there is this designer, Tellybean Knits, is hosting a mystery knit along that is also a cowl. So I have the yarn picked out for that. I will share that here in a minute after I finish talking about the projects that I am working on. I'm also continuing to work on the gift knit, which is in this bag back here. This bag my partner made me. He has an industrial sewing machine and makes great bags. So I'm not going to share that, but I am getting close to completing it. So I'm hoping to have that for the Christmas box early in December, so I can send that off. So what does that leave? That leaves a new cast on, because of course, after I finish this great sweater, there is a blank spot, although you wouldn't know it with the whips that I have. I mean, I could certainly work on other whips. But I decided I wanted to make this Icelandic poncho. So my sister gave me this nifty poncho book. I think she got it from her local library. They were selling or giving away. So 24 ponchos. I've looked at this for a while, but I haven't actually made it. So what I do like about this is the length and the color work. Of course, I am changing the color work piece of it. Let me talk about the yarn first. So this yarn you may recognize from the Riverside sweater. So this is locally produced yarn by Harmony Fields. It's in the colorway Truffle, which is just the color of the sheep from which it came. And it is also spun locally as well, Skagit Valley yarn. So this is the main color. I have just finished kind of the collar and switched over to, which was knit in 1x1 rib in US size 7 needles, and I just did an increase round, just a knit increase round, and put it on the larger needles. These are US size 10. These are knit picks. Typically I like Chowgu red lace, which is what this needle is, the US size 7. Well, let me talk about contrast color 1. I don't think I have enough of this. This is also a Skagit Valley yarn. This colorway, I want to say it was like, no, it's fromage. This is also undyed yarn. This is a worsted weight yarn, also used in my Riverside sweater. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to have enough, so I have this this yarn, which is a commercial brand that I am not remembering right now. I don't think it's, pretty sure it's not Lion's brand. There may be the tag in here somewhere. So these are the colors together, the contrast colors. And instead of doing the pattern, the motif in the book, I am grabbing out of this doodle directory, I am grabbing a different motif that has roughly the same stitch count. Repeat. So it is on page 54, and there is really not a great way to show this pattern, but it's the, let me see, the owl, whoops, how about that? The owl pattern that's just directly in front of my fingers. So I am going to do that instead of the kind of standard Icelandic diamond pattern that's in there. So I'll let you know how that goes. I drew the chart and added the ink, whoops, I don't need that in there, and added the increases in this book. This is the Ottergami book. I believe it's a German book. It has kind of graph paper. It's more dotted paper, but you can easily turn it into graph paper. I did the same thing with this sweater I'm wearing. I copied a motif from a different stitch, copied this motif into a different, from a different stitch dictionary. I think it's, I want to say it's knittography. That doesn't quite sound right, and I can't quite see it from where I'm sitting. So I will keep you posted on how this turns out. One of my goals for making this poncho was to have kind of a riding poncho that I could wear this time of year when it's rainy and the weather's fairly unpredictable and wet, which kind of is a handy segue into continuing my thinking about horsekeeping. Horsekeeping, if you are the average horse owner who is lucky enough to keep your horses at home, shut my computer because I have a cat wanting to come over here and hang out. So Harley, you may see Harley. You probably can see Harley. Hi, Harley. He's like, he'll come on his own terms. No touching, please. Okay. Like I was saying, if you're the average horse owner who is lucky enough to keep your horses at home, and many people are not, I recognize that. Many people have to rely on boarding facilities. Pardon me while I look at the wind. We have had weather events called cyclone bombs in the Pacific Ocean that have been impacting us. There are still a lot of people that are without power. We've got very lucky. Even though we are in a rural area, our power came back on within like 4 hours. So I am kind of watching the weather a little bit out there, but I do want to continue this. And weather is an important part of this subject. So people who board their horses often have facilities available to them, whether it's an arena, often a covered arena. There's a lot of facilities around here that have covered arenas. Like I said this morning, I don't have that. I have a pasture. I have a round pen that I often do stuff in, particularly with Odin right now. So it's, when your daylight hours are limited, the weather is a factor. It can, and maybe you work full time like I do, it can be really tricky to find time to meaningful engage with your horses. And about 90 to 99% of having horses at home is taking care of them. So in other words, feeding them, picking up after them, and, scheduling hay deliveries and getting grain and transporting that out, and the list goes on. So this is my point is, when I was a little girl daydreaming about horses and probably reading every horse book I could get my hands on, it doesn't make a very good story or selling point when most of your time is spent taking care of horses versus riding them. That's where the appeal is. There is also the part about, and this is the horsemanship journey, not only taking care of them, but the part about what does it take to train a horse to accept a rider. And as a child, of course, I was oblivious about it. I was oblivious about it for a long time. My view of horsemanship was shaped probably by the Billy and Blaze books from when I was a kid, where Billy and his horse Blaze were partners, and Blaze was on board for all of Billy's ideas for the most part. Like, let's go on adventures, let's do these things, and so that, I guess that was how my view of horsemanship was initially shaped. And as I've gotten to know horses over the many, many years that I've been around them and had them, it's like, well, it's not quite like that. There's definitely a partnership. You have to earn a partnership with a horse. And part of that is just our basic biologies. Humans are predators. Most of us are omnivores in that we eat meat and we eat vegetables. There are a few great souls that are completely vegan. Like horses, horses are completely vegan. They do not eat any animal products. And horses are prey animals. So the way we approach life is differently. Our survival is very different. So the fact that a horse, which is a prey animal, will accept a human, which is a predator, as a trusted partner and companion is an enormous responsibility, and requires a tremendous amount of patience and understanding. And that has taken me a lifetime to develop. And I'm still learning that. just referring to the horses, Bragi is still, he is 6 years old. Both horses are Mustangs that I adopted from the Wild Horse Adoption Program. That's hosted, sponsored by the Bureau of Land Management. I'll have a link in my show notes if you're interested in that. So Mustangs are a little bit different than domestic horses because they did spend at least part of their time on the range, typically, unless they were born in captivity. Neither of my horses were born in captivity. Bragi was gathered and captured. Camera just stopped randomly. Bragi was captured probably when he was a yearling or younger than that. Odin was captured as a 6-year-old. So he had probably his own herd or his own maybe very small band of companions, possibly mares. So just the way that they have grown up, which is very different than a horse that has was born and grown up on a horse farm, is a very different approach. So, all of these things really need to be taken into consideration. So that's my point about horsemanship, and I'll certainly continue talking about horsemanship and what I'm doing with my horses. My trainer is coming today to help me work with Bragi. We have been taking the very slow route of introducing Bragi to the trailer and getting him comfortable with trailer loading. He has been very slow to mature mentally. So when we started, he was terrified of everything. And now he's really learning a lot. He's a lot more mature now and is able to accept that responsibility. Odin, he's my riding horse. I hope to ride him tomorrow. I'm not really sure if we're getting another cyclone bomb or what's happening tomorrow, so we'll see. And I just want to mention the title of this episode is Odin Has Dadbod. So last week my trainer came out and we focused on Odin because I had a couple things that I wanted to work with on him because I'm signed up for a jumping clinic on December 1st. So I've been spending a lot of my horse time working with Odin in like 15 to 20 minute increments during the week. And last week the trails were closed. So ordinarily our kind of fitness, our fitness session would be on a weekend, but the trails were closed to hunting. So we couldn't do that. So I decided to do some arena work and kind of polish some things that Odin need work on. Well, one of the first things that my trainer noticed before she wanted me to keep him unsaddled is just kind of looking at his shape. And he is a typical energy conserving horse in that his favorite speed is stop. His favorite activity is stand still. So he has a tendency to just kind of like let his tummy just like stick out, like gravity. If you imagine, all 4 feet on the ground and let gravity do its work, and it pulls on his spine and kind of makes it a little bit of a banana shaped or almost sway back. And he's not old enough to be really sway back. So she had me do some tummy, they would be the horse version of doing core exercises, like doing plank or maybe some crunches or some other core strengthening exercises. I mean, it's the irony is I'm sitting here on the sofa, so I could say Odin has couch potato body but I said dadbod because when you think of dadbod, you think of the middle-aged man that's probably has a typical desk job and, perhaps, and I'm generalizing, grossly generalizing, but perhaps, the favorite after-work activity is drinking beer with buddies or something like that. That's what I mean. That's the image I'm trying to generate. And that would be Odin's favorite activity too. It's like, I'm going to sit at my desk all day. I'm going to sit on the sofa at night and watch sports and maybe drink beer with my buddies. So trying to get Odin in shape for this jumping clinic has been a little bit of a challenge with the weather. So that's another way that this kind of ties in my whole ramble on this. But there's the way that you get horses to kind of work their core and strengthen their back muscles is that you can take your fingernails and just kind of like right where the girth or the cinch would go, you can kind of like use your fingernails and kind of, make this motion and then kind of go back and forth, and it makes them tighten up and it engages their back muscles. And so we've been practicing that all week. And he sometimes he's pretty good about it, and sometimes he's like, this is hard. I agree. It's hard to do plank. So following that example, I have been doing some plank and some other exercises. I am noticing a difference though. When I took his blanket off him this morning, he looks pretty good. So, he's, if I can keep this up, he may have more of a hot bod than a dad bod. So that is the goal. I'm going to end this episode here. I will keep you posted on Bragi's training. Some plans for the weekend include we may go skiing. The local ski area opened, which is Mount Baker, opened a couple days ago. They got a ton of snow with the latest storm, so we may try and go skiing this weekend. So take care, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave me any comments. I will catch you next time.